Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Thank you. Ram Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pari Raja Gacharya Ashtotara Shri Srimad Isi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pari Raja Gacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Satyanandana Bhakti Vinod Kaur Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jaya Shri Rupa Sanata Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sai Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Ranakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Pranatharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. ISKCON Varma Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gora Pramanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru, Sri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tito Jayam Niridayat Nasta Preshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, and unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. In loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, good morning, everybody. Today is January 12th, 2025, and we are reading Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 25, Description of the Characteristics of King Ranjana, and we'll be reading verse 47. Adyota virmukhi chaprag Varavekatra nirmate Vibrajitam janapadam Yati tabhyam yumatsaka Yadyota virmukhi chaprag Varavekatra nirmate Vivrajitam janapadam
Viprajitam janapadam
Yati tabhyam yumatsaka
Yati tavyam yumansaka
Yadyota virmukhi cha prag
Kanyota virmukhi chakra
Varavekatra nirmate
Varavekatra nirmite
Vivrajitam janapadam
Viprajitam janapadam
Yati tabhyam yumatsaka.
Yati tavyam yumansaka
Okay, please chant.
Adyota virmukhi chakra
Kadyota virmukhi cha prag
Varavekatra nirmite
Varavekatra nirmate
Viprajitam janapadam
Vibrajitam janapadam
Yati tavyam yumansaka
Yati tabhyam yumatsaka. Anyone else? Anybody? Okay, word for word. Kadyota, of the name of Kadyota.
Of the name of Kadyota
Avirmukhi,
Avirmukhi
the name Avirmukhi.
The name of Avirmukhi
Cha,
Cha
also.
Also
Prak,
Prak
toward the eastern side.
Toward the eastern side
Vara,
Vara
2 gates.
2 gates
Ekatra,
Ekatra
in one place.
in one place
Nirmite,
Nirmite
were constructed.
were constructed
Vibrajitam,
Vibrajitam
of the name Vibrajita.
Of the name Vibrajitam
Janapadam,
Janapadam
city.
City
Yati,
Yati
used to go.
used to go
Tabyam,
Tavyam
by them.
Tavyam
Jumat,
Yumat
of the name Juman.
Of the name Yumat
Sakaha,
Saka
with his friend.
with friend
Eh. Translation. The 2 gates named Kadyota and Avirmukhi were situated facing the eastern side, but they were constructed in one place. Through these 2 gates, the king used to go to the city of Vibrajita, accompanied by a friend whose name was Juman. Please repeat. The 2 gates named Kadyota
The 2 gates named Kadyota
and Avirmukhi
and Avirmukhi
were situated facing the eastern side,
were situated facing the eastern side.
but they were constructed in one place.
They were constructed in one place.
Those 2 gates,
Those gates,
the king used to go to the city
the king used to go to the city
of Vibrajita,
with Vibrajita,
accompanied by a friend whose name was Juman.
accompanied by a friend whose name was Juman.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The 2 names, Kadyota and Avirmukhi, means glowworm and torchlight. This indicates that of the 2 eyes, the left eye is less powerful in its ability to see. Although both eyes are constructed in one place, one is stronger than the other in the power to see. The king or the living entity uses these 2 gates to see things properly, but he cannot see unless accompanied by a friend whose name is Juman. This friend is the sun. Although the 2 eyes are situated in one place, they have no power to see without the sunlight. Vibrajitam janapadam, if one wants to see something very clearly, vibrajitam, he must see it with 2 eyes and the assistance of his friend, the sunlight. Within this body, everyone is a king because he uses his different gates according to his own will. Although he is very much proud of his power to see or hear, he is nonetheless dependent on the assistance of nature. Om Jnana Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatham Tam Sam Sajivam Savadetam Savadutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jikapate Kopesha Kopeka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Rangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Panchakopa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right. So this verse is talking about the city of nine gates, which is an allegory that we've been talking about for a few weeks now, I think. So this allegory this whole city of nine gates is an allegory for the body. And King Paranjana, that's us. That's us living within that body. And so this verse is talking about the eastern gates, which refers to our eyes. And says that their eastern gates are accompanied by their friend Yuman, or sunlight, which is pretty obvious. We need light to see, right? I personally cannot see so well in the dark, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So we like to think that we're independent, but really we're not. We are independent pretty much in no ways, because we need the sunlight to see, right? We need food to maintain our bodies. We need so many things. We're not independent, right? And also, this is sort of pointing out that our senses are imperfect, and that's one of our four main defects of being in this human form of life, right? Does anybody know one of them? These are pretty basic. Any of you guys? What are the four main defects of being born in this human body? So what is one of them? Imperfect senses. Okay. Yeah. Come on, Chris. Got one?
Not so good memory. I almost forgot.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly a defect, but okay. So the four main defects are the tendency to make mistakes. Okay. The tendency to be under illusion, and the tendency to cheat, and imperfect senses, right? All right. So because our senses are imperfect, we actually need to purify them to really understand the finer points of spiritual life. This is an example that I've given before, and you know, most of my life I sort of just had this idea that yeah, all the animals, they had a soul as well, you know. I kind of had that idea, but I didn't internalize that idea. I didn't really truly understand that idea fully until I became a vegetarian, right? And then one day I was walking down the street and I noticed I'm walking really funny. I'm like, why am I doing this? I was trying to not step on the ants. And it's not like before I went out of my way to step on the ants. I just didn't think about them. I just didn't think about them at all. I just walked, right? And now suddenly it was like after I had become a vegetarian, I really started to truly understand what that meant. That all of the living things are jiva souls as well. It was when I truly understood that I was like, oh, maybe I should try to make an effort to not step on these ants. I was more conscious of the fact that these ants were living souls too, even though I had kind of intellectually known that in the past. And that's because the stopping eating meat was able to purify my senses to such a degree that I was better able to understand that, right? And so that's a pretty basic example there. So another example is when we think about, impersonalist philosophy and how impersonalist philosophy kind of disregards, a lot of them will even say, they believe in the Bhagavad Gita, right? But somehow when they read the Bhagavad Gita, they kind of neglect to understand that Krishna is the supreme person, right? And if we look at chapter 9 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the most confidential knowledge, right? That whole chapter is full of statements where Krishna is referring to himself, saying me, and he's saying I am me. One of the most famous ones is, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. 925 goes on to say, those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship the ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. And those who worship me will live with me. So the impersonalists generally think, everything is God. God is everywhere, which is true. That is true. God is everywhere. God is everything. Krishna is everything. But he's also an individual being, and that's, simultaneously one and different. And the reason I chose this verse, 925, is because the last line of it says, those who worship me will live with me. Now, why would Krishna say that? If everything is God, where are we going to go then when he says we're going to go live with him? He says they're going to live with me. Because if you're going by the impersonalist idea that everything is God, well, then we're already living with him, right? If everything is God and that's all there is, right? Is God is one, well, then we're already there. So why would Krishna need to then say that those who worship me will live with me? Because that implies that at some point we're not, right? So that doesn't really make sense, because if you're going with the impersonalist view, then we're already living with him. So there's no reason to say that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what is God's original form. Is it Krishna? Is it everything? What is it? So in the 11th chapter, so Arjuna so in the 11th chapter, Arjuna asked to see Krishna's universal form. He wanted to see it. And when he did see it, he was pretty disturbed by this. It was scary to see literally everything in the whole creation at the same time. That's pretty dramatic, right? And so Krishna, he then wanted to see him in his original two-handed form. And so Bhagavad Gita 11:51 says, when Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, O Janardana, seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind, and I am restored to my original nature. Now, part of the purport says, here the words Manusham Rupam clearly indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be originally two-handed. Those who deride Krishna as if he were an ordinary person are shown here to be ignorant of his divine nature. If Krishna was like an ordinary human being, then how is it possible for him to show the universal form and again show the four-handed Narayan form? So it is very clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita that one who thinks Krishna is an ordinary person and who misguides the reader by claiming that it is the impersonal Brahman with Krishna speaking is doing the greatest injustice. Krishna has actually shown his universal form and his four-handed Vishnu form. So how can he be an ordinary human being? A pure devotee is not confused by misguided commentaries on Bhagavad Gita because he knows what is what. The original verses of Bhagavad Gita are as clear as the sun. They do not require lamplight from foolish commentators. And that's because so many people think, just like it's said in the 9th chapter, that fools deride me when I descend in my human form, because people think, oh, Krishna is just a normal human, or maybe he's a very, very great human, but he's still just a normal human. He's not the Supreme Lord. But that's not true. And Krishna is repeatedly saying in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the source of all creation, right? He's repeatedly saying things like that. So, okay. So one of the people that used to come here, they don't come so much anymore. But she, I used to try to tell her about Krishna and how Krishna was the original personality of Godhead, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And she just couldn't wrap her mind around that. And part of it was because her vision was so clouded by her own experiences, and she could understand the impersonal feature of God, of Krishna, but she could not understand that God is also a person, that Krishna is also a person. She couldn't handle that because her experience of people have only been, people that have been mistreating her, people that are liars and cheaters, and she just couldn't believe that, Krishna, that God was a person, right? And this is because her vision is just clouded by her own personal thoughts about people, and she can't really think beyond that. She can't really see beyond that. And that's because her senses needed to be purified. So again, going back to chapter 11, when Arjuna asked to see Krishna's universal form, Krishna said, "But you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence." And that's because Arjuna was not able to see with the current eyes that he had, right? So Krishna gave him the ability to see in his full universal form. So from the purport from that verse is, a pure devotee does not like to see Krishna in any form except his form with two hands. Devotees who are correctly situated in a transcendental relationship with Krishna are attracted by loving features, not by a godless display of opulences. The playmates of Krishna and the friends of Krishna and the parents of Krishna never want Krishna to show his opulences. They are so immersed in pure love that they do not even know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In their loving exchange, they forget that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the boys who play with Krishna are all highly pious souls, and after many, many births, they are able to play with Krishna. Such boys do not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They take him as a personal friend. And so we can see this, something similar happening in the story when Mother Yashoda, when Krishna is playing with his friends, and his friends tell Mother Yashoda that he was eating dirt. And Mother Yashoda, says, "What are you doing? Your friends are saying you ate dirt. Did you eat dirt?" He said, "Oh, no. If you think I've eaten dirt, why don't you just look in my mouth and you'll see." And she looks in his mouth, and in there she also sees the universal form. And so just for a moment, her ability to see changed, right? Because before that, Krishna was just her son. She was trying to scold him for eating dirt. And suddenly she was able to see his universal form in his mouth. And she became, a little bit bewildered. And Krishna didn't really like that, because he's, starting this mood of awe and reverence almost, and he just wanted his mom back. And so now she got covered back over. Her sight was covered back over, so she couldn't see that anymore, right? And so we see that in so many of the Krishna Lila stories, right? That his playmates sometimes have an inkling, right? They sometimes have an inkling that he's the Supreme Lord, but then other times they're covered over. He's just their friend, you know. But every once in a while, that kind of veil gets lifted, and they realize, right? But if you think about from the perspective of you know, if you were Krishna, it would get pretty boring pretty fast if everybody everywhere you went was just like, oh yes, you're just so wonderful, you're so, you know, wonderful and so intelligent and so beautiful, and you know, I mean, that would be nice for a little bit, but after a while it gets pretty boring. You want to just have, you know, real loving exchanges with people. You don't want people to just be having exchanges with you because they think you're so beautiful or so powerful or so knowledgeable or whatever it is, right? You want to have meaningful relationships with people. Okay, so on the cover of every Back to Godhead magazine, does anyone know what the slogan is that's on every cover of Back to Godhead magazine? There's no? Really? Okay. It's Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. Where there is Godhead, there is no nescience. You guys seen that? Yeah. Okay. So nescience, what does nescience mean? Who knows? Anybody want to guess? Huh?
Darkness.
Yeah, darkness. It means lack of knowledge or ignorance, darkness. Yeah. So what is that knowledge that we should have that brings that light? What is it? So again, I'm going to refer to chapter 9, which is the most confidential knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita, which if you're in my Bhagavad Gita class, we're going to be starting that chapter very soon. So what is that most confidential knowledge? So chapter 9 is all about that. And 9:13 says, O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So this verse right here tells us that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the great souls are fully engaged in devotional service. And I'm choosing to enunciate the word fully because they have no other devotion. They have no other diversion, rather, right? They're fully engaged in devotional service. This is what the great souls do. And because of that, they are under the protection of divine nature. They're no longer controlled by material nature, right? So that's one part of this most confidential knowledge. So Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Great souls are fully engaged in devotional service, and they're no longer under the jurisdiction of the material energy. Okay, so next, later on in that chapter, Krishna tells us how to do this, how to do devotional service, and what will devotional service provide us with. So if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. So these verses are showing us how to perform devotional service, telling us that it's going to free us from bondage, and that we're going to go back to Krishna as a result of doing this devotional service. All right, so then later on in that chapter, these verses tell us who can do this. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, Sudras, can attain the supreme destination. How much more is so of the righteous Brahmanas and the devotees and saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engage in loving service unto me. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So there, in these verses, we find out that this path is open to everybody, that anyone can do it. And if we do this path, if we follow these teachings of Krishna, that we will surely come back to him. So let's just review that. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Great souls are fully engaged in devotional service, and therefore they're not subject to the control of material nature. Then we perform devotional service by offering everything to him, to Krishna. And by doing that devotional service, we will be freed from bondage, and we will go back to Krishna. And this path is open to everybody. So that's a very, very brief summary of the most confidential knowledge. So if we keep that stuff in mind, we won't end up in darkness if we end up following that. So I wanted to tell a few stories. One is about a man named Kailash and how his vision was somewhat limited. He was not able to see proper position of himself as a jiva soul. So there was this man named Kailash, and he was a very attached householder, and he was at home, and one day Narada Muni came to him, and he said, I'm going to Vaikuntha, please come with me. And Kailash said, oh, I'm sorry, my kids are young, and I need to take care of them, but come back later and I'll go with you then, right? So many years later, Narada Muni came again, and he said, are you ready now? Come to Vaikuntha with me. And Kailash replied, oh, I'm so sorry, sir, but now I have a grandson. And I need to help take care of him, and everybody needs my guidance at home. I can't come now. So then again, later, after so many years, Narada comes again. Only this time, Kailash had passed away, he had died. And while he's leaving, without seeing Kailash, there's this dog barking loudly in the doorway. And turns out this was Kailash. He had been born again as a dog. And the dog's barking. And he's saying, oh, Naradaji, I'm Kailash here. I'm here. And I've become a dog. And Narada Muni says, he says, okay, well, I can take you now to the kingdom of God. Would you like to come with me? And he said, no, I'm sorry. My sons, they're very careless with all the money I acquired. And therefore, I've become a dog to protect that. And, he's barking to keep the thieves away from stealing his hard-earned money, right? And so Narada Muni, he's feeling very sorry for him, and he went away. So many years after that, Narada Muni comes back again. And this time, the dog had passed away. And, he was very sad. Narada Muni was thinking, oh, who knows where Kailash is now. But as Narada's leaving, here comes a snake hissing on the way. And he says, Narada, tss, I'm Kailash. What are you doing here in a snake's body, Kailash? Do you want to come with me now? And the snake said, oh, no. I'm happy now that my sons, they put all the money in the bank. It's protected. But now they're so lazy, they don't wake up every morning to take care of the fields. And so the grains are being destroyed by elephants or neighbors or stealing them. And so I've become a snake to protect the field of grains. I'm very busy, and I'm sorry I cannot come with you now. So seeing the sorry condition of Kailash, Narada Muni clapped his hands loudly and calls his sons over. And he shows them the big snake lying in their fields. And the sons, they start hitting the snake with sticks. And Kailash, he keeps trying to tell them, I'm your father, why are you hitting me? I'm your father, why are you hitting me? But all they're hearing is, right? And so they killed him. They killed him. I mean, he's a snake, he died, killed him. But due to the mercy of Narada Muni, as he was dying, the snake remembered Narada Muni, and in his next life, he became a great devotee of Krishna by Narada's grace. But we can see that Kailash, he didn't really have the proper vision, right? He just kept going into new bodies and just being so focused on his family life. And at the end, his family that he was loving so much, he was doing all this for, right? He was protecting the money, he was protecting the fields. I mean, they ended up killing him, right? So that's a story of someone whose vision wasn't in the right place it should have been. So I have another story. This one's one of my favorites. I just think it's so funny. And the reason I wanted to tell this story is just because, we can't always trust what our senses are telling us, even if, the people always say, you got to see it to believe it, right? But sometimes we can't even trust that. I mean, especially now, there's, with AI going on, there's so many, if you go on social media, there's so many posts that people are making. One of the things, I really love history. I've always loved history. And so on social media, like I'll follow history-based pages sometimes, or I used to. And so occasionally these things will come across my feed. It'll be, some archaeological site. And so what I've been seeing lately is there'll be these amazing pictures of this really amazing archaeological site, and it just looks wonderful. And people, there's thousands of comments, people saying like, oh, wow, this is so amazing. The thing is that archaeological site doesn't exist. It's not real. It's just completely fabricated by artificial intelligence. And it's getting shared as if it's real, saying like, oh, yes, they've discovered these amazing, pyramids, in Tucson, Arizona, and they have these great pictures and it looks really nice and real, but it's like, no, that's not real. It doesn't exist. And so even now we can't always believe what we see. And then we have the new technology of deep fakes, right? Which is where you can make a video of a person doing or saying anything. And it's completely fabricated video that's made using existing images and videos of that person or event or whatever it is. And so we're really entering an age where we really cannot believe what we're seeing. Anyway, but this is a much more fun version of that. So this is one of my favorite stories. So we know Radha and Krishna, they're always trying to see one another. And Radha, she's actually married to another fella named Abhimanyu. And his mother and sister are always trying to prevent Radha from seeing Krishna, which makes sense. I mean, if my son or my brother was married to somebody and they kept running off to see someone else, I would also try to prevent that from happening. But this led to some really funny things. So one day, Abhimanyu, he went off to the market to go buy cows. And Krishna had spread a rumor in the town that, oh, Krishna is coming. Krishna's coming in the disguise of Abhimanyu, right? And he's coming so he can see our dear Srimati Radharani. So, of course, Abhimanyu's mother, Jutila, Jutila's the mother and Kutila's the sister? Is that right? Yeah, Jutila's the mother, yeah. So, when Jutila and Kutila heard this rumor, oh no, Krishna's coming in the disguise of Abhimanyu, they were determined, we're not going to let him come and see Radharani. No way. We're not going to let this happen. So Abhimanyu, who's out buying cows, he's out at the market, he's buying cows. He comes home, and his mother and his sister will not let him in. They start just like chastising him, beating him. Get out of here. We know you're Krishna. Get out of here. We're not letting you near her. And he's just like, what? What? No, it's me. It's your son, Abhimanyu. No, we know you're Krishna. And they, as they're doing this, well, here comes Krishna, but he looks just like Abhimanyu. And he's coming, walking up the path. And they chased away the real Abhimanyu and invited Krishna in dressed as Abhimanyu. And were saying, oh, we heard that rascal Krishna, he was coming in the disguise of you, and don't worry, we chased him off. Don't worry. we got rid of him. And yeah. So so then Krishna said, oh, well, Abhimanyu said, there's a great puja that they can do at this temple, him and Radharani, and they'll be doing this, all day and all night. And Jutila and Kutila said, yes, of course. And so then Radha and Krishna were able to spend all day and all night together, enjoying the Rasa Leela in the forest. And I just love that story. There's a great painting illustrating this. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's just so cute. Have you seen it? Painting? Yeah, it's really sweet. So I love that story too. And I told that story just to remind us, we can't always believe what our eyes are telling us. So even though Jutila and Kutila, you'd think like, oh, they would know that that's not their brother or their son. But no, Krishna is able to put on that disguise so well that they threw him out. Okay, and then the last story I wanted to tell. This is a story about a woman that didn't believe her senses at first, but then later she became a believer of her senses to her great benefit. She was able to do some devotional service for the Lord. So this is about a woman in Mayapur, and she was a nice devotee, and she went to go see Lord Nrsimha in Mayapur. And she had said a nice prayer. This is what she said. So after offering my obeisances to the captivating Prahlad, who stand next to his beloved Lord, with his hands folded and his small body decorated with fresh flowers and beautiful ornaments, I prayed, my dear Prahlad, you are expert in receiving all kinds of blessings from Lord Nrsimhadev. You even received the blessing of forgiveness for your demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu. Please ask the Lord to bless this poor soul with the destruction of everything that stands in the way of her devotional service. Show me the way to real happiness. So her prayer ends up getting answered in a way she didn't quite expect. So she's standing there just looking at Lord Nrsimha, and she heard a very deep but sweet voice that said, I want my eyes back. Now, at first she just ignored it because, I don't know, sometimes I have weird thoughts and I'm just like, that's crazy. Just sort of ignore it. So at first she just ignored it, and she kept her mind in the mode of prayer. But again, she heard, I want my eyes back. So she tried again to disregard this message, but she started to feel very, almost like a burning sensation in her heart. So she was thinking, well, what am I supposed to do here? And the voice said, go to the pujari. And she said, okay. It's like, he's going to think I'm crazy, but okay, I'm going to go there. So she went to the pujari rooms, and she saw Jananivas Prabhu reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's actually, there was two twins, and now they both passed away, isn't that right? No. Pankajan passed away? Okay. Anyway, so she found one of the twins reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, and she told him what happened. And he said, oh, you should talk to my brother. You should tell my brother, because he was the main pujari for Lord Nrsingadev. But at that point, she just felt like she had done enough. She didn't have to tell his brother. And so the next day, she went there again, and she's having all this doubt. What if I, just made this up? What if this, she had an eyesight problem at that time, that her eyes had been bothering her for like 6 weeks. She's like, that was just my subconscious kind of, trying to tell me, wanted my eyes to be working again. She just kind of like psych herself out of what she heard. And so she's thinking about that in that way. And again, she heard the voice. And this time the voice was more serious and more firm. And he said, you will get your eyes back when I get mine. So the next morning, she woke up very, very early. And normally she didn't wake up so early. And she heard a soft voice that urged her to get up, bathe, and go to Mangalarti. And so she did. And so after that, after Mangalarti, the same voice urged her to find Pankajantri Prabhu in the pujari room. And so she went, and she was very distressed about this. She had tears in her eyes. She felt, a little shy to reveal her mind to him. And she started talking to him, and she told him what she had heard. And so without saying anything, he just gave her some maha sweets from Lord Nrsinga's plate. And so the next morning, her daughter had gone to the temple, and she shouted when she got home, Mommy, they changed his eyes. They changed Nrsinga's eyes. He has beautiful red eyes now. And as the sweet, deep voice had promised, miraculously, her eyesight had gotten better. Within 3 days, this happened. So to give some context to this story, so Lord Nrsingadev, he originally had the red eyes. He had these red eyes originally. And somebody had come and made an offering of these 2 yellow gemstones to use as his eyes. And so the pujaris were a little bit reluctant, but they didn't, want to reject the man's offering. So they changed his eyes to these 2 yellow gemstones. And then when this woman was hearing this voice, I want my eyes back. And she told the pujaris this. They were actually quite happy to give him his original eyes back. And so in this story, the reason I'm telling this story is because this woman, she was trying to disregard what her senses were telling her, right? But when she finally followed through, she ended up doing a great service for the Lord, and which ended up blessing her as well and getting her sight back. So, all right, so with that, I think we'll end here. Is there any comments or questions? Yes,
Yeah,
please.
question,
So Jutila, Abhimanyu's mother, and Kutila, the sister,
Yeah, Jatila's
the wife,
the mother,
mother and the wife.
the mother-in-law, and
Yeah, I
then
forget.
Kutila's his sister.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So they heard that rumor about Krishna, but it seems like they didn't check out that rumor, huh? They just believed it.
Yeah, I think probably they were just so used to so many shenanigans
Yeah.
from Krishna that,
They were inclined to believe it.
yeah,
So that seems to be the root of the problem. So it struck me that, okay, when we hear something, we got to check out what the source is,
yeah,
where it comes from. Otherwise, we can be fooled by AI or even our own minds or other people's minds. Yeah. So I just thought of that. And that story you just told, that last story, did Pumpkin Jungri write a book? Is that where you got it?
yeah, well, there was he wrote like a short little pamphlet with like different stories.
Pastimes.
Yeah,
From the Lord Nrsimha.
about Lord Nrsimha. Yeah, it's really great. I love it.
Yeah.
There's an online version of it where it's like really nice pictures and everything. If you want, I could send you the link. I'll look for it. It's really nice.
And you know who that lady was?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's possible that it says in that book. But
I'm wondering if I know her.
Yeah.
She's a god sister or whatever.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing? That's. She was having a direct experience of Lord Nrsimha, but she was trying to deny it.
Yeah.
And usually those things are illusory.
Right.
So the Lord really had to. Did you read that book of his, the pastimes?
I did. Yeah.
That's similar to the one about the brahmachari who was.
Oh yeah, and he got
arati.
scratched. Or he's like sitting on his chest or something and he got scratched. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Lord Nrsimha was, can you tell that?
Oh, I can't know it enough to tell it. I might be confusing too, but there was one where a brahmachari was very fearful of worshiping Lord Nrsimha.
Yeah, that's the one I know.
And I think maybe that he didn't get scratched in that one, but Lord Nrsimha came to him and like sat like I think on his bed or something, and told him to not be afraid and to just go and worship him. And then I think he just like ran straight to the temple without really stopping to get dressed, and he ended up there and he was not dressed at all, and everybody was kind of looking at him like what's going on. And then he told somebody what had happened. And then there's another story, I think, where someone got scratched by him, but I think that was he was more.
Well, that was Janani Ras, wasn't it? Janani?
I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we'll end there. I think breakfast is out. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.